In the vastness of the galaxy, humans had always been seen as the underdogs. They were young in the grand scheme of space, with little experience in the ways of advanced interstellar civilizations. But the galaxy's many races made a grave mistake. They underestimated humanity. And it all began with a gift. It wasn't much of a gift. In fact, it seemed more like a punishment. A massive alien warship had appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. Its origin was unknown, and its intentions even more unclear. The sleek vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, but it was also old and battered. Its metallic surface was scratched, and parts of it were rusting. The ship had the appearance of something that had been abandoned for decades, if not centuries. The aliens who had sent it didn't offer much of an explanation. In fact, the message they transmitted was short and condescending. "We've decided to give you a challenge," it read. "This ship is yours, but it is broken beyond repair. If you somehow manage to fix it, consider it a victory. However, we highly doubt that's possible. The ship has no value to us anymore. Good luck." Then, without further communication, the ship's engines powered down, and the massive vessel hung in Earth's orbit like a silent sentinel. Humanity's first instinct was to see it as a cruel joke. But deep down, something stirred. The ship, despite its visible damage, was still a ship. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was turning something broken into something extraordinary. The world's best engineers, scientists, and military leaders were brought together for the task. They gathered in a massive underground facility, deep within the Earth's crust, where the ship had been carefully transported. It was the first time such a complex and high-stakes operation had ever taken place in human history. Inside the enormous hangar, the ship's dark hull loomed over them. It was as if the ship was alive, waiting for someone to unlock its secrets. Despite its rusted appearance, the ship had an undeniable aura of power. Every human who stood before it could feel its potential, even if it was buried beneath layers of damage and neglect. The engineers studied the ship with fascination, their minds racing with possibilities. Every inch of the ship was analyzed, and every broken component was meticulously cataloged. But no matter how much they studied it, one thing was clear: the ship was far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. It was ancient, designed by an alien race far more advanced than anything Earth had ever known. The technology was beyond comprehension. Warp drives, energy weapons, shielding systems, all buried beneath the ship's battered surface. Even the slightest glance at its interior left the human engineers overwhelmed. It seemed like an impossible puzzle, a challenge too great for any race to tackle. But humanity, driven by a sense of curiosity and pride, refused to back down. As the days passed, the team of engineers started making slow progress. They were careful, working day and night, driven by the challenge the ship presented. Some parts of the ship were beyond repair, but others, mysteriously, seemed to respond to their touch. The ship's power core, once dormant, flickered to life with the first signs of energy. The engines, although damaged, hummed faintly as if sensing the work being done. Every victory, no matter how small, brought excitement to the team. But despite their progress, the ship's true nature remained a mystery. It was like a grand puzzle, but no one knew the rules of the game. One evening, as the team gathered to discuss their findings, a new development occurred. Dr. Emily Carter, the lead engineer, was deep inside the ship's core, inspecting the main energy conduit. She had just finished studying the strange control panel when the ship's systems suddenly powered up. Lights flickered, humming sounds filled the room. And then, a low mechanical voice echoed through the ship. "System online. Initiating diagnostics." It wasn't human. The voice was cold and mechanical, its tone devoid of any emotion, but there was no mistaking it. It was alive, and it was speaking to them. The engineers froze, staring at the flickering screen in disbelief. The ship, which had seemed abandoned and broken beyond repair, was now showing signs of life. The mystery deepened. What was this ship? How had it been designed? And why had the aliens abandoned it? Dr. Carter's heart raced. She reached for the control panel, her fingers trembling as she activated the ship's systems. Data flooded the screen, a cascade of information from an alien language that was completely unknown to them. But there were patterns, and somewhere in the alien data, they found one word that stood out: weapon. The realization hit them like a lightning bolt. This ship, despite being old and broken, was more than just a vessel. It was a weapon capable of unimaginable power. The question remained: how had it come to Earth? Why had the aliens sent it to humanity? And what were they planning to do with it? Dr. Carter gathered the team, her voice steady but urgent. We have to unlock everything this ship has to offer. This might be the most important thing humanity has ever done. As they continued to work, the mysterious alien ship loomed above them, its secrets hidden deep within its walls. Humanity had been given a challenge, but they had no idea that this broken vessel would soon become their greatest weapon, a force that would change the galaxy forever. The suspense was palpable. Could they fix it? Could they unlock its true potential? And if they did, what would it mean for the galaxy? For the first time, humans began to realize that the true challenge had only just begun. The days turned into weeks as humans labored over the massive alien ship. Despite their initial optimism, the task was far from easy. What they had thought was just a challenge of repair quickly became an intricate puzzle of advanced technology and alien designs. The more they dug into the ship's innermost workings, the more they realized that the vessel was far beyond any technology they had ever encountered. It wasn't just the ship's structure that was a mystery. It was the way it responded. As humans made repairs, the ship's systems seemed to adapt, almost as if it was alive, learning from every move they made. The engineers and scientists on Earth were having their minds bent and reshaped by the knowledge they were gaining. But each answer brought new questions. Inside the massive hangar, the team worked tirelessly, trying to bring the ship back to life. One of the most difficult tasks was dealing with the ship's energy core. The central reactor was completely powered down, and even after all their efforts, nothing seemed to trigger it back to life. It was as though the ship had a mind of its own, hiding its secrets just out of reach. But then something happened. On a late night, when the engineers were about to call it quits, one of the power cores hummed softly. It was a strange, melodic sound, something not mechanical at all. A low, vibrating pulse seemed to vibrate the air around the ship, sending ripples through the hangar. Dr. Emily Carter, the lead engineer, was the first to notice the change. She had spent countless hours working with the ship, trying to understand its complex systems. Standing in front of the power core, she felt a sudden jolt of energy surge through her fingertips, like an electric charge. The core began to glow faintly, its once dormant energy now pulsing in a rhythm she couldn't quite understand. "Something's happening," Emily murmured, her voice filled with awe. The other engineers gathered around her, and as they watched, the core's glow intensified. Then, as if on cue, the ship's entire system flickered to life. Lights flooded the cavernous space, and a deep hum reverberated through the walls. The ship was awakening. Is it really working?" one of the engineers asked, wide-eyed. Emily took a cautious step forward. "It's more than that. It's almost like it's recognizing us." The ship's exterior began to respond as well. The metal surface, once cracked and corroded, shimmered as if the ship itself was healing. Panels that had been sealed for centuries slid open, revealing intricate control systems that had once been hidden from view. And in the cockpit, a holographic display emerged, showing a star map far beyond anything humans had seen before. But it wasn't just the technology. The ship was growing, expanding, as if feeding off the efforts of the humans who had worked so tirelessly to revive it. The ancient vessel was becoming something more, something far beyond what it was originally designed to be. As the humans observed, the ship's energy systems flared to life. Shields activated, weapons systems powered up, And all around them, the air hummed with anticipation. It was clear the ship had just begun to reveal its true potential. The team was both exhilarated and terrified. They had no idea what they had just awoken. No one had imagined that their repairs would cause the ship to become this powerful, this fast. But now that the ship had begun to awaken, there was no going back. Dr. Carter felt a mixture of excitement and dread in her chest. We have no idea what we're dealing with here. This isn't just a weapon. It's something far more dangerous. Her voice broke the silence in the room, and the engineers turned to her, unsure of what to do next. "We need to be careful," Emily warned. "We don't know what's going to happen next. We've activated something far beyond what we can understand." But despite her caution, there was a sense of wonder in her voice. She knew this was the turning point. Humans had never faced something like this before. This ship, this abandoned vessel, was transforming into an unstoppable force, and it was humanity who had breathed new life into it. The world had watched in awe as the ship was resurrected, but now there was a growing sense of fear. The aliens who had abandoned it were right to believe it was beyond repair, but humanity, in their relentless pursuit of understanding, had done the impossible. They had revived the ship, and now the galaxy was about to witness the consequences. The mystery was deepening. Why had the aliens given up on such a powerful weapon? Why had they abandoned it so carelessly? And why had they sent it to Earth in the first place? As the ship's systems roared to life, a single thought echoed in the minds of all the engineers. Was this ship meant to be a gift or a curse? No one could answer that question, but one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. And as the ship grew more powerful, it wasn't just the engineers who were aware of it. Across the galaxy, all eyes were now on Earth, watching as humanity's greatest creation, its most dangerous weapon, began to rise. In the distant reaches of space, a quiet alarm was triggered. A signal was sent to every corner of the galaxy. The Deathworlders, the warriors who had once ruled the stars, were watching. And they knew. Humanity had just shown them what real power looked like. The galaxy was holding its breath. Would the humans use the ship's power to conquer? Or would they prove that they were the true masters of the stars? The mystery was just beginning. The ship's transformation was far from ordinary. Over the next few days, the engineers and scientists worked around the clock to observe its every movement. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was a force, pulsing with energy and potential. The walls of the ship seemed to hum with an almost sentient awareness, responding to the human's touch like it was a living entity. The more they explored, the more they realized that they had awakened something far beyond their expectations. The ship's systems were far more advanced than anything humanity had ever created. It was as if it had been waiting, dormant for centuries, only to be brought to life by their hands. And it wasn't just the ship's interior that had changed. The world outside was beginning to feel its impact too. News of the ship's awakening spread like wildfire. What had once been a secret project, confined to Earth's most secure locations, was now known across the globe. World leaders, military commanders, and civilians alike felt a strange mix of awe and terror. What kind of power had humanity unleashed? But the scientists on board the ship were still focused on the immediate question. What had they truly found? Was this ship meant for destruction or something else entirely? Every piece of data they uncovered seemed to raise more questions than it answered. Dr. Emily Carter stood in the ship's command center, looking out at the vast view of space. The ship's massive viewports offered an unfiltered view of the stars, and the ship's hull reflected the light of distant suns. It was an eerie sight, one that made Emily feel both small and infinitely powerful at the same time. "We've done it," she said softly to herself. "We've awakened something. Alive." The hum beneath their feet seemed to respond to her words, almost as if it was acknowledging her statement. The ship was indeed alive, or at least it was conscious, aware of its surroundings and its newfound connection to the humans aboard. One of the engineers, Mark, stepped up beside her. He had been working closely with the core systems since the beginning, and now He was watching the data streams that were pouring in from every part of the ship. "Dr. Carter, you should see this," Mark said urgently, his eyes fixed on the screens. Emily quickly moved to his side and glanced at the display. The ship's sensors had detected something. Something out there, deep in space. A fleet. Multiple vessels, moving toward Earth. "We're not alone," Emily murmured. Mark nodded, his face pale. "It's an entire fleet of warships, alien warships, and they're heading straight for us." The ship had begun to sense not just its own surroundings, but also the broader universe around it. The question now was, were these ships friend or foe? And why had they come? "We need to send a signal, something to warn them, or we need to prepare," Emily said, her voice steady despite the dread rising within her. "Prepare for what?" Mark asked, his voice trembling slightly. Emily knew the answer, even though it was unspoken. The galaxy had seen humanity as insignificant for so long, but now they had awakened something far greater than anyone had anticipated. This ship, once abandoned and deemed useless by its creators, had become the symbol of humanity's defiance. And now, the galaxy was going to see just how far that defiance would go. "They'll come for us," she said quietly, "and we'll show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." The ship's power had only begun to show itself, but already humanity was standing on the edge of a new era. An era where they no longer had to look up at the stars in awe. An era where humanity would make its mark on the galaxy, and the rest of the universe would have to take notice. The ship's engines powered up as Emily and her team scrambled to get everything ready. But before they could engage, a massive flash of light appeared on the ship's sensors, a burst of energy. It was coming from the alien fleet. "This isn't just a fleet coming toward us," Mark said, his voice tightening. "They're already attacking." A wave of shock and fear swept over the crew, but Emily quickly regained her composure. "Send out a warning," she said firmly. "Let them know who they're dealing with." She didn't know exactly what kind of war these alien ships were capable of, but she knew one thing. They were about to find out that humanity had no intention of being the underdog anymore. The ship's engines roared to life. Power surged through its systems as the shields activated, and weapons began to power up. The galaxy was about to witness a fight unlike anything it had ever seen before. Emily took a deep breath as she turned to face the approaching battle. The ship, the vessel they had once thought useless, was no longer just a weapon. It was humanity's salvation. And for the first time in history, humanity was ready to take its place at the center of the universe. With the ship now fully activated and its power unleashed, they were ready to show the galaxy what Earth's inhabitants were truly capable of. The countdown had begun. The aliens had no idea what was coming. "Let's show them," Emily whispered to herself, a grin of determination spreading across her face. And then, with the full might of their ship ready, the humans began their counteroffensive. The galaxy was about to see the true power of humanity. The alien fleet loomed closer, each ship a towering silhouette in the black expanse of space. Their ships were sleek, advanced, and bristling with weapons humanity had never even dreamed of. But the humans aboard the vessel were no longer intimidated. They were ready. Emily stood at the command center, her heart pounding in her chest. The familiar hum of the ship's core reverberated through the walls, a constant reminder of how far they had come. What had once seemed like a discarded, useless vessel was now their strongest weapon, an invincible force in the making. "Prepare for impact," Emily ordered, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. The ship's crew was already in position, every member working tirelessly to ensure they were ready for whatever came next. Target the lead ship. The alien vessels were closing in fast, their weapons glowing ominously. They had come with one purpose, to overwhelm and destroy Earth, but they had underestimated humanity's resolve. The ship's sensors hummed to life, and a data stream flooded the main screen. The alien fleet was large, but the human ship had an advantage that couldn't be measured by firepower alone. The ship had awakened with a mind of its own, a mind that was constantly analyzing, adapting, and strategizing. "Captain, shields at full strength," Mark, the chief engineer, called out. His fingers danced across his console, activating the ship's defenses. "Weapons ready." Emily glanced at the display, taking in the gravity of the situation. The lead alien ship was now in range, and its weapons systems were primed. But the human ship was no longer the weak, abandoned vessel they had found. It was a weapon of incredible power, and more importantly, it was in the hands of those who had fought and survived against all odds. Firing in 3, 2. Emily's voice was calm but commanding. Suddenly, a bright burst of energy lit up the dark void of space. The ship's weapon systems roared to life. A beam of pure, concentrated energy shot forward, striking the lead alien ship with incredible force. The ship shuddered as the blast connected, sending shockwaves rippling through its hull. For a moment, it seemed as if time itself had slowed down as the alien ship buckled under the sheer power of the strike. The alien vessel was not prepared for this. The blast had caused massive damage, tearing through its shields and breaching its outer layers. It was a moment of victory for humanity, but Emily knew this was only the beginning. The battle had only just begun. "We've made contact," Mark said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Direct hit. Their shields are down to 40%. Good. Keep the pressure on them," Emily ordered, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Let them know we're not the ones to be underestimated." But as soon as they struck the alien ship, something unexpected happened. The remaining ships in the fleet retaliated with a barrage of missiles and laser beams, lighting up the darkness of space. The alien warships moved with terrifying precision, coordinating their attacks to hit the human ship from multiple angles. "We're taking fire," one of the crew members shouted. Emily's eyes darted to the damage reports flashing across the screen. The ship's shields were holding up for now, but the pressure was mounting. This wasn't going to be a one-sided fight. The aliens were skilled, and they were relentless. "Activate evasive maneuvers," Emily commanded. "Don't give them a clear shot." The ship jolted as it veered to the side, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. The hum of the engines shifted as the ship's advanced propulsion system kicked into overdrive. Humanity had learned how to adapt quickly, and now that knowledge was paying off. The crew's focus remained razor-sharp. Each person knew what was at stake. This was no longer just about survival. It was about proving that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest forces in the galaxy. "Captain," Mark said, his voice urgent, "we've detected something strange. The alien ships, they're communicating with each other." Emily's brow furrowed. What was going on? The aliens had never shown any indication of communication before. Were they regrouping for something more powerful? "Patch into their frequencies. Let's hear what they're saying," she ordered. A series of garbled signals echoed through the command center. It was clear that the alien communication was not in a language humanity could understand, but the tone of their voices was unmistakable. There was panic. "They're retreating," one of the crew members exclaimed, astonished. "Don't let them escape. Lock on to their coordinates and fire again," Emily ordered, her voice low and determined. The ship's weapons powered up once more. Emily could see the alien ships trying to scatter, but it was too late. Humanity's ship was relentless. With one final, concentrated burst of energy, they fired again. The second shot hit one of the retreating ships directly, sending it spiraling into the abyss of space. The remaining ships of the fleet hesitated, their movements now erratic. It was clear that the aliens were now on the defensive, unsure of how to respond to the overwhelming force humanity had just unleashed. But even as the first victory was won, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. They had made their mark, but what would come next? Would the galaxy now see humanity as a force to be reckoned with, or would they face an even greater challenge in the future? One thing was certain. Humanity had stepped into the fray, and they weren't backing down. "Prepare for the next wave," Emily said, her voice steadied despite the thrill of the battle. "This is only the start." As the crew rallied behind her, they knew one thing for certain. The battle for survival in the galaxy was only just beginning. And with their ship now transformed into a weapon of immense power, humanity was ready to show the galaxy just how far they were willing to go. The first strike had been made, but the war was far from over. The aftermath of the battle was still fresh in the minds of the crew. The shattered alien fleet was drifting in space, their once powerful ships now little more than wrecks. Humanity's ship had proven itself to be a formidable force, something that no one had expected. The unexpected power of the once-abandoned vessel had left the galaxy shaken. Emily stood in front of the massive command screen, her gaze fixed on the scattered remnants of the alien ships. Their retreat was a victory, but she knew this was far from over. This would only be the beginning of something much bigger. "Damage report?" she asked, her voice calm but intense. Mark, the chief engineer, was already on top of it. "We're holding steady, Captain. Shields are at 80%, weapons at full charge, and the engines are running at optimal capacity." "Good. Keep the repairs moving, but don't let your guard down. They're coming back. They'll regroup." Despite the victory, a sense of unease hung in the air. The galactic response was swift and inevitable. News of humanity's strength was already spreading, and Emily could feel it. The weight of their survival was pushing them into the spotlight, and that spotlight was about to attract even more attention. "Captain," one of the communications officers interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission, encrypted. It's from the Galactic Council." Emily exchanged a look with her crew. The Galactic Council was known for overseeing peace and order in the galaxy, but their intervention had always been political and calculating. The Council was not known for taking sides unless there was an enormous threat to the galactic order. "Patch it through," Emily replied, her tone measured. A few seconds later, the face of an alien council representative appeared on the screen. The alien was tall, with smooth, translucent skin and glowing eyes. Its species was one of the oldest in the galaxy, and its position within the council was one of great influence. The message was clear. Humanity had caught their attention. "Humans," the alien began, its voice cold and emotionless. "You have done the impossible. You have inflicted damage on the Saran Empire, an empire that has conquered countless worlds. This is not something we take lightly." Emily's heart raced. The Saran Empire, a name that had sent shivers down the spines of many species across the galaxy. They were known for their ruthlessness, their insatiable desire for power, and their military might. Their ships were unmatched, their weapons devastating. But now, humanity had struck a blow to their might. However, the alien continued, "This attack will not go unanswered. The Saran Empire is mobilizing. You have provoked them. They will come for you." Emily stood her ground, meeting the alien's eyes with unwavering determination. "We're not afraid of them. We've survived worse, and we'll do it again. If they want war, we'll give it to them." The alien's expression flickered, and for a moment, there was a hint of something. Was it respect? Perhaps even fear? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the same coldness. "You have been warned, human." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving the room in heavy silence. As soon as the transmission ended, the crew erupted into conversation. Their fear and adrenaline were palpable, but so was the defiance. Emily's mind was racing. This Saran Empire was not to be taken lightly, but humanity had already proven that they could hold their own. The galaxy had underestimated them once, and now they were the ones on the defensive. "Prepare for the worst," Emily ordered, her voice steady and commanding. "Get everything ready. We may have to face them head-on." She turned toward Mark. "I want our weapons systems at full power, and I want our shields upgraded. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." Mark nodded, already working on the adjustments. He knew how dangerous this Saran Empire was, and the stakes were higher than ever. In the midst of the preparations, Emily paused. The ship's crew was depending on her to make the right decisions, to guide them through the chaos that was coming. But for the first time in a long while, Emily felt the weight of the responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. Humanity was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. "Captain," one of the crew members said, breaking her train of thought, "we're picking up multiple Saran ships on long-range scans. They're on an intercept course." Emily turned back to the command screen. The Saran Empire was coming, and they weren't coming to talk. The message was clear now. Humanity had sparked a war that they couldn't walk away from. "Ready the crew," Emily said, her voice a low growl. "This is it. The Saran Empire won't back down, and neither will we." As the crew braced for impact, the ship's weapons hummed to life once more. Humanity was no longer an unknown entity in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they would fight for their survival, no matter the odds. The first strike had been theirs, but now they would face the full might of the Saran Empire. It was time to show the galaxy just how far humans were willing to go. The moment the Saran ships appeared on the screens, the atmosphere aboard the human vessel turned to one of high tension. The crew's faces were a mix of determination and fear. They had just dealt a devastating blow to the Saran Empire, but now they were about to face the consequences. The question was no longer about whether they could survive, but how much of the galaxy would see them fall. On the bridge, Emily stood at the command center, her back straight, her jaw clenched. The Saran fleet was massive, a shadow of darkness against the stars, their ships looming like predators in the vastness of space. A chill ran through her body. The sheer scale of their force was intimidating, but Emily had learned one thing during her time as captain: never back down. "We're outnumbered," Mark said, his voice tight with apprehension. "We can't take on their entire fleet. We need to think smart." Emily's gaze shifted to the tactical screen. The Saran ships were closing in, their weapons powered up, their intent unmistakable. They were ready to annihilate. The odds were against humanity, but that had never stopped them before. "Hold steady," Emily commanded. "We've been underestimated before. They think they can just wipe us out. Let's show them we're not some easy target." Her words were met with silence for a moment. And then, as if on cue, the crew got to work. Mark began making quick adjustments to the ship's systems, rerouting power to the shields, while another officer updated the weapons targeting systems. Emily turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Cruz. "Get a message out to all Allied forces," she ordered. "Tell them the Saran are coming. They need to prepare for battle." Cruz nodded and moved to send the urgent transmission. The Allies' humanity had made in the wake of their surprising victory were more numerous than they had been just weeks ago. The other species of the galaxy, some skeptical at first, had come to see humans as a force that could no longer be ignored. Now, in the face of the Saran Empire's wrath, humanity wasn't fighting alone. Emily's mind raced, her every thought focused on survival. The first wave of fire came fast. Brilliant beams of energy shot across the void, targeting her ship and lighting up the blackness of space. The ship shook violently as the first blast hit, but the shields held, just. "Shields holding at 60%. Mark shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "Weapons locked on target." "Return fire," Emily snapped. The ship's cannons opened fire, sending a barrage of energy blasts into the approaching fleet. The alien ships were powerful, but humanity's determination had made them unpredictable. They didn't follow the rules of the galaxy's established strategies. They adapted, learned, and turned every disadvantage into a strength. The enemy ships retaliated, but the humans weren't giving up easily. The once broken vessel that had been handed to them, now bristling with weapons and defenses, was beginning to show its true potential. It wasn't just about brute strength anymore. It was about cunning, about thinking in ways the Saran Empire never expected. Another explosion rocked the ship as another blast pierced the outer hull, but it wasn't enough to stop the human vessel from retaliating. The battle continued with an intensity that stretched the limits of human endurance. Emily watched the tactical screen as more and more Saran ships fell, their shields overloaded by humanity's newfound tactics. "We're taking out their flanks," Cruz called out from his station. "The Saran are starting to break formation." They weren't ready for this. Emily allowed herself a small breath of relief. She'd expected the Saran to be relentless, but they were being forced to adapt, just as humanity had. The tables were turning, and for the first time in a long while, it seemed that the Saran Empire might be the one on the back foot. But the victory wasn't in their hands just yet. The Saran fleet was still massive, and they had far more firepower than the humans. Emily knew it would only be a matter of time before they regrouped and came back with everything they had. "Captain," Mark called from his station, his voice tense. "We've got incoming 2 more Dreadnought-class ships. They're heading straight for us. They'll be here in minutes." "Damn it," Emily muttered under her breath. They had to finish this quickly before reinforcements arrived. "All crew, brace for impact. Mark, reroute all power to the engines. We're going to hit them with everything we've got." There was a brief moment of silence before the ship surged forward, accelerating toward the Saran fleet. The crew barely had time to react as the ship shot toward their enemies, weapons charging, shields reinforced. The Dreadnought-class ships were unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Their sheer size dwarfed anything the humans had in their fleet. But Emily wasn't about to let that stop her. She knew one thing: humans were survivors, and they would do whatever it took to protect their future. "Firing at will," Emily ordered, her voice unwavering. The ship's weapons fired with blinding intensity, striking the 2 dreadnoughts head-on. Massive explosions rang out as the energy blasts tore through the Saran ships. The human vessel dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding the retaliatory fire, while simultaneously launching a coordinated strike that crippled the first dreadnought. The Saran ships were far from finished, but humanity had delivered a clear message. The fight for survival was far from over, and they had no intention of backing down. The battle was escalating, but Emily knew one thing: the universe would soon learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. And when humans said, "Let's go to war," the galaxy had better be prepared. The chaos was just beginning, and humanity was ready to fight to the end. The battle raged on, echoing through the vastness of space. Humanity had given this Saran Empire a fight they hadn't anticipated. What started as an overwhelming force now seemed less certain. The Saran ships were falling back, their formation breaking apart as the humans unleashed relentless counterattacks. But despite the damage they had inflicted, the humans knew the war was far from over. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her focus steady. She watched as more Saran ships fell under fire, their shields unable to hold against the sheer force of human ingenuity and weapons. The battle was fierce, but humanity had found a way to turn the tide. "Mark, we've got another wave coming in," Emily said, her voice calm but with a touch of urgency. "Get ready for it. We can't let up now." The tactical screens flickered with the incoming enemy ships. This time, however, there was something different. The Saran were regrouping, bringing in their most powerful weapon, an enormous, heavily armed super dreadnought, a behemoth that made the previous dreadnoughts look like small frigates by comparison. Mark looked at Emily, his brow furrowed. "Captain, if that thing fires on us, we won't survive long enough to make a dent in it. It's got a gravitational weapon, and they'll use it to tear us apart." Emily took a deep breath. She'd faced impossible odds before, but this was different. It was the final push, the last stand. The Saran were going all in. And if they fell, humanity's entire fleet would be wiped out. "We're not going to lose," she said, her voice strong, defiant. "We'll hit them first. We have the advantage. We've learned to adapt faster than they ever could." She turned to the weapons officer. All power to the energy cannons. Charge the graviton cannons to full power. If they want to tear us apart with gravity, let's give them something they've never seen before. The crew nodded in unison, their faces set with determination. The human ship's weapon systems powered up, its engines roaring to life as the ship made a sharp turn, heading straight for the super dreadnought. The tension was unbearable. The SRAN ships tried to align their massive cannons, but it was too late. The human ship was already in motion, its speed unmatched as it dodged a barrage of deadly fire. The gravitational weapon fired, sending a violent pulse that shook the fabric of space itself. It struck the human ship, but the reinforced shields held. Just. Shields at 20%. Mark shouted, his voice strained. We can't take another hit like that. Emily's mind raced, but her voice was calm. Fire the graviton cannons. Now. The human ship unleashed a devastating blast of concentrated energy, a beam that collided directly with the super dreadnought's core. The weapon's effect was immediate and catastrophic. The super dreadnought's gravitational field began to destabilize, its massive size buckling under its own power. The Saran ship staggered in space, but before it could recover, another barrage from the human vessel sent it into a spiraling descent. The explosion was nothing short of magnificent, a brilliant eruption of light as the super dreadnought was torn apart. The SRAN fleet faltered. We did it, Cruz shouted, his voice full of disbelief and triumph. They're breaking. Emily allowed herself a brief moment of relief, but she knew they weren't done yet. The Saran still had forces in reserve, and the war wasn't over until they were completely driven back. But this was a victory. Humanity had stood tall, faced the impossible, and overcome it. The Saran began retreating, their once dominant fleet now scattered and broken. Their commanders scrambled, unable to regain control. The damage was too severe. The Saran Empire had never encountered anything like humanity's resistance. Victory is ours, Emily said, a smile crossing her face as she looked around at her crew. We fought them off. We did what no one thought possible. But even as they celebrated, Emily knew that this wasn't the end. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson that day. Humanity was a force that could not be ignored. And though the battle was won, the war was far from over. But one thing was clear. If anyone wanted to challenge humanity now, they would have to pay the price. And the Saran Empire would never forget the day they tried to destroy the humans and failed.